afternoon, everyone. 4 o'clock straight up on a Friday edition of On Cue, coming at you live inside the friendly confines of the remote studios of SR 1029 FM The Game, Sports Radio 1029 FM The Game, part of the Coastal Sports Digital Network. As always, download the app. We got about 2 hours to play with on a very busy What the Frig Friday edition of On Cue. Hope everyone had a good Sports Thursday. By the way, today, the 13th of March, and I feel as though no one's making a big deal out of Friday the 13th. I guess we only do that during Halloween, but be that as it may, we are another week in the books in the world of sports, and we always encourage you guys to get in on the conversation, bring something to the table. Very easy to do. Hashtag On Cue on this Friday. A lot of NFL to get into, and 4 o'clock hour powered by our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. Don't forget, save right now. Check the promo code in the links, BYP20 and or OnQ20. That'll get you savings. We'll touch on the NBA. We'll touch on a little college basketball. March Madness is pretty much upon us, a big weekend in college hoops. But, the NFL, we know it just never, ever sleeps, right? And there's a couple of, tidbits that have caught my attention in the NFL. Now, I'll hold off on what everyone else in this market is probably obsessed with. A.J. Brown. We'll cool off a little bit. Lloyd Vance at 25 after, John Bueller in his 5 o'clock spot from Fansided. But I threw this out there to start the show. And I want you guys to get in on the conversation as always. We love when you guys engage. Comment on the YouTube channel. Follow me on X at Rich Quinones as well. But we're seeing some of these journeyman quarterbacks that are still finding a home in the NFL. They're still finding a home in the NFL. And it just, for some reason, it caught my attention. Kyler Murray signing with the Minnesota Vikings and basically saying that was his, childhood team growing up. And citing Brett Favre throwing that pick in 2009. Can you believe that? 2009 against the Saints. What was that? The NFC Championship game or divisional round? I think it was the NFC Championship game, right? Because he threw a pick to end his little tenure there and did the same thing in Green Bay against the Giants in 2007, his last pass as a Green Bay Packer. So you got Kyler Murray going or signing with the Minnesota Vikings, which, believe it or not, I actually think that's a smart move for both parties. Then you have what I think is really interesting, this whole idea that Tua, who signed with the Atlanta Falcons, is going to push Michael Penix Jr. Now, again, are we just totally lost when we are talking about the quarterback, the young quarterbacks in the NFL? Some of these quarterbacks that are basically trying to find a new home. And it kind of led me to this today. Who has a better chance, a better shot at saving their career? Is it Murray with Minnesota or is it Tua in Atlanta? Because I've been racking my brain thinking about this and pulling up the numbers and looking at the team's rosters as constructed. And I can't figure it out. I really can't. I mean, look, it's bad enough we get a quarterback like Daniel Jones, who's in the Hall of Fame when it comes to making money. I mean, this Daniel Jones has become a thief. He's just become an absolute thief. What he was able to pull out of the Giants, what he's been able to pull out of the Indianapolis Colts. I mean, God bless him. But now I'm looking at these two quarterbacks and, look at the sample size. They did have a moniker of success. Did they not? So you can sit there and say, what are the Falcons doing? They inked Tua. He's going to compete with Penix, who you drafted after giving Kirk Cousins a crazy deal, a monster deal. Penix was the 8th overall pick 2 seasons ago. He's only played 14 games, injuries, inconsistency. But when the GM comes out and says, hey, man, we're going to push you, wow. Then you got Kyler Murray, who is, taking what I like to call the humble deal with the Minnesota Vikings. And I think that's such a smart move by Murray. because I think J.J. McCarthy has basically thrown his last pass. I believe he's thrown his last pass with the Minnesota Vikings. I really do. I think they're waiting for Kyler Murray to come in and basically grab that job away from McCarthy. So we'll talk a lot about that today. As I mentioned, the same reports coming out left and right with A.J. Brown. Is it the Rams? Is it Denver? Is it the New England Patriots? I mean, again, if something happens, something's going to happen. If something breaks, it's going to break. In my experience, more times than not, I've always found as soon as you get off the air, the news drops. It is a Friday. I don't believe anything's going to happen right now. Typically, it would be the opposite. You get fired on a Friday. We don't have to deal with you coming back in the office, right? You're going to cool off during the weekend. So we got that. We got a What the Frig Friday. What made you say what the frig in the world of sports? And as far as the NBA, very interesting. Eric Spoelstra basically came out defiant. He was defiant. He basically pulled a Gene Hackman and Hoosiers and said, I apologize for nothing. I apologize for nothing. And how about this? We were doing the props yesterday, right? We were doing our Q's picks, and I mentioned the player props with Bam. And what did I say yesterday? I said, I probably bet you it's right around 19 plus. You might want to play that, but don't be so confident. Well, he scores 21 last night. So we'll get into that. And then I thought it was really fascinating. And I'm actually happy that Jaylen Brown basically called out the NBA about the foul baiting, right? And rewarding the flopping, because that crap's got to go. We got March Madness. We got the conference tournaments right around the corner. So get ready to fill out your brackets Sunday, right around 6-ish, 6:30-ish. We'll get into that. We got Luka dropping 51. The Lakers actually wake up offensively. We'll get into that because it didn't take them 1,000 friggin' shots like we saw the other day. So we got some NBA, we got some college, and we got the NFL, which never, ever sleeps. Who's got a better shot, a better chance, a better chance at saving their career? Is it going to be Tua? Is it going to be Kyler Murray? So we will dive into that, and we will take a look at some of the moves that have been made in the NFC, a little more focus on the AFC. So as I mentioned, very busy Friday. As always, get in on the conversation. You can hashtag on Q. We welcome you guys commenting in early and often. We got about 2 hours to play with today. Again, like I said, John Bueller in the 5 o'clock hour, Lloyd Vance in about 15 to 20, our NFL insider, and of course, host of Lloyd Vance's Insider Football. We are powered by our good friends over at Three Brooks Bourbon. Get ready with tea, fresh roasted coffee. You can check out the promo code as well for the first-time purchases, and Play It Again Sports, 2 locations in Deptford and Mount Laurel. So a lot of NFL to dive in today. Let's rip off the comments, see what you guys have to say. The man chimes in. Happy friggin' Friday, filthy animals. Nice little homage to Home Alone. Don't ever say NBA and very interesting in the same sentence. Well, all right. Talk about Frank Martin press conference. A lot of movement going on already in college. A lot of movement. It's going to be not fascinating, but how about interesting? How about interesting when the brackets, when we see how the field plays out, right? So it's, I always love this time. I really do, because I think March Madness is one of the best times of the year. Like college basketball, it's defined by the conference tournaments and obviously March Madness. And I think this season, and we'll touch on it a little more tomorrow because we'll have a Saturday show on tomorrow because I want to get into it. But so right now, we have a lot of the conference tournaments going on as we speak. And we will keep you updated on what's going on right now. Big Ten tournament, quarterfinal, Illinois up 60-45. Tennessee, Vandy in the SEC quarters just started. Tennessee up 6-2. My Johnny St. John's taking on Seton Hall later tonight in the Big East. But I always believe that, in years past, Duke coming out of the East, getting the good seeding, it was kind of like the Michigan States, the Kentuckys, the Kansas, the Louisvilles, the Duke, the North Carolinas. But I'm looking at this potential bracket, this field, that will pretty much have it all laid out come Monday. And I can make a case for and against 10 to 12 teams that I think can make a deep run and win it all. Now, you're still going to get your days of your upsets, your 8, your 9, your 11-5, your 12-5, your, whatever, the 14-2. And we just know. And by the way, Florida defeated Kentucky earlier, 71-63. Michigan over Ohio State, 71-67. They didn't cover that number. So I think that there's probably 9 to 10, 11 teams that have the depth and the talent and the skill set to make a deep run. And that's one of the beauties of March Madness. Once you get through the conference tournaments and then boom, right? We turn around and here we go. And that's the beauty of it. And I think right now we talk about game sevens in baseball, in the NHL, in the NBA. Exciting. Nothing beats a game seven. But for my money, you've got the Super Bowl, you've got game seven of those respective sports, and you've got March Madness. To me, that's the coup de grace. Nothing, nothing, nothing beats March Madness. And the tournaments are still, they're entertaining, they're engaging, they're compelling. But man, I'll tell you, when you go back, like growing up, to me, the Big East tournament was everything. The Big East tournament was everything. Now, I'll date myself a little bit, but when you had the Providences and the Boston College and the Georgetowns and the St. John's and the Villanovas, like that, Syracuse, those tournaments were just always you just never knew what was going to happen. I mean, they were compelling, they were competitive, there were crazy miracle endings and runs. I mean, everyone remembers, the McNamara's, the Earl the Pearl Washingtons, the Chrissy Mullins, the Patricks, the Villanovas of the 80s, 85, Raleigh, let's make a run, Harold Jensen, Pinckney, I remember Kemba Walker, Allen Iverson with Georgetown. So fantastic tournaments. And the other thing too is the Big East actually put ESPN on the map, right? Because remember Big East back in the day on ESPN. Remember the ACC on ESPN. And also, if you're really going back, old times, old school, you talk about the legit Big East Conference, 79 to 2013. Once they started airing those games in the mid 80s and the late 80s and the early 90s, it just blew up. And it was always to Syracuse, to Georgetown, the Villanovas, to St. John's. And the one thing, if you go back, the Big East was created by Dave Gavitt, who was a former Providence men's basketball coach in the AD. And it became a reality back in 79. Like that was the old school when they were inking all these television deals. And you had some of these games on USA. Remember the ACC Challenge, ACC Big East? I mean, that was, again, it was almost like Pat and John doing the games with CBS on the NFL. It was a great time. But I love March Madness. We'll dive into that a little more. Got some NFL comments coming in. Keep it locked in. 13 past the 4 o'clock hour. We're going to roll through on a busy Friday edition of On Cue. And again, we are powered by our good friends over at Pliable in Belmar, Three Brooks Bourbon. Get ready with tea and fresh roasted coffee. Get in on the conversation. Hashtag On Cue. You guys have been fantastic with the engagement and checking out the channel as well. I got some NBA trolls coming in on my fraud Bam 83. I got some Ravens fans still pissed off about my comments yesterday about DaCosta. You're going to have to deal with it. I got Raiders fans chiming in too, calling me out because I said Maxx Crosby was humbled and a fraud. So we'll get into that. We got you locked in. 15 past the 4 o'clock hour on the East Coast. We are cranking up on a Friday edition of On Cue. Quick timeout. We'll come back in about 30 to 60. Your comments on the other side. Lloyd Vance in about 10 minutes. All right, welcome back, everyone. 17 past the 4 o'clock hour on a Friday edition of On Q. Man says nothing beats the Big East tournament pre-2015. I would agree 100%. Get in on the conversation. Hashtag On Q. That'll get you involved. And as I mentioned, a lot of comments still coming in from the various topics of conversation on a busy Thursday show as we kind of piggyback it over. Big Bad chimes in. Q, you mentioned this yesterday with your Crosby thoughts. How come no one has offered 2 first-round picks for Maxx Crosby? Well, again, the Raiders and Baltimore had a deal in place, and Baltimore did. They just reneged on it. So now you don't have to. As I mentioned, teams have leverage. If they believe he's damaged goods, then they've got some leverage. And quite frankly, I also think the Bears still might have a hand in this. Chris chimes in. Q, excellent stuff on the NBA and the 83 yesterday, comparing it to the others that have scored 70 plus in history. The free throws weren't the issue so much as the way Bam got them, and him being in there till the end is a BS argument. I agree with you. Kobe scoring less than a minute into his game and won by 18. Stick to the only reason. There's not like Bam's game, the free throws. Yes. Stiller 8 chimes in. Trust, I'm no Kobe or Laker lover, Q, but with that being said, what the hell was that? Totally disrespectful. I can't believe Spoelstra's trying to defend this. Yeah, he was pretty defiant, but again, what is he going to do? Right? We talked a lot about this the other day. What was he going to do? It's the NBA. It's a bad product. I feel as though we talk about this ad nauseum. It's just not a good product, right? It's just not a good product at all. So it's like one of these things where, come on. It is what it is, right? At this point, what are you going to do? It's just not really a good product. So nobody is going to look at it and take it serious. That's the issue. And one of the other aspects of this too is when you put everything in a vacuum with the NBA, when you start talking about the load management, the tanking, the Matador defense, and you keep going back and forth, then you have Jaylen Brown coming out and saying that the league should not reward you for flopping, right? And that's a lot of it, SGA. That is a lot of it, the kickouts that they do. I agree 100%. I mean, it's foul baiting. It really is. It's foul baiting. And the reason that Brown is pissed off is because he got ejected over a non-call, which the refs are not going to stand for that kind of nonsense. And you also brought it up because, again, this is the type of issue they had when they just lost to Oklahoma City. And that was a tough game, 104-102. That was a good game. But SGA is always the guy that's flipping and flopping, kind of like LeBron. I mean, Brown scored 34 and only got to the line 14. Hello. Third highest total of the season. So I get why these players get a little just annoyed after a while. That was a really good game. That had a playoff feel type of game to it. It really did. Brown went off. And, the other thing too is remember, they're going to kind of the baby steps with Tatum when they feel really comfortable with Tatum. But the NBA is a bad product. The NBA is a bad product. And I think you're going to see that filter down the last week or two of the season. I mean, some of these teams are really bad. They're not even competitive. They're just not competitive at all. And it makes for an even worse product. Some of these teams can't get out of their own way. Indiana is a horrible team. Washington is a horrible team. Brooklyn is a horrible team. Sacramento is a horrible team. The Pelicans are a disgrace. Dallas is bad. Memphis is bad. Utah is one of the worst teams in the league. They can't defend and they can't score. Golden State's not good. Portland's not good. Phoenix is right? I mean, it's where we're at. The product itself is not good because, again, the players take nights off, the load management, there's no defense, they're running and gunning. Think about last night for a second. What happened in last night's game? Luka drops 51, a clean 51. Now, how many times do you think Luka went to the line last night, scoring 51 points? He got to the line 31 times, 17 of 31. Oh, by the way, 9 of 14 from beyond the arc in 37 minutes. And he's been playing like a man possessed. He's averaging 34.7 points in the month of March. But that's a clean 51, unlike the other nonsense we saw the other night in Miami. Just saying. Just saying. All right, 25 past 4 o'clock hour. Lloyd Vance on the other side. Don't forget, it's a Friday edition of On Cue. Rich Quinones here. We're on Kicks, Millions, Rumble. Also on SR 1029 FM The Game. As always, download the AUDACY app and you can search Coastal Sports Digital Network On Cue Monday to Friday. We are still trying to, right now we'll fire off some days, 2:33-ish, 4-ish, but we're going to give you an hour plus and a solid effort. We love when you guys engage. You can also check out the show on demand as you guys typically do. We appreciate it greatly. As always, get social with me at Rich Q on X. And of course, on IG, TikTok, Rich Q on the mic. Let me get back to a couple more of the comments. Yeah, the Ravens fans yesterday. Some of you guys were seething at me. I still don't know how you can take what the GM said and you actually believe the level or the lack thereof transparency, right? The lack thereof transparency. Because I maintain this, ultimately, it was your classic case of buyer's remorse. And what happens is you realize I don't need to give up 2 first-round draft picks because I can go out and get a free agent. All right, Lloyd Vance on the other side. Keep it locked in on a Friday edition of On Cue. Quick timeout. We'll come back on the other side. A lot of NFL comments coming in, some more NBA. We'll touch on a little college hoops. Keep it locked in on a Friday. All right, 425 on a Friday edition of On Cue. Rich Quinones here. So I mentioned with the NFL, Tua going to Atlanta, Kyler Murray going to Minnesota. I think that's a smart move by Kyler Murray because I don't think this quarterback that they currently have, I don't think McCarthy is the answer. And out of the two that I mentioned, Kyler Murray and Tua, I actually think Murray has a chance to kind of salvage and save his career. I look at Tua and it is kind of goofy because they signed Kirk Cousins. I'm speaking of Atlanta. They sign Kirk Cousins and they give him a monster deal, but then they still go ahead and they draft Michael Penix Jr., who's banged up and he's inconsistent. When the Cardinals drafted Murray, listen, he put up some decent numbers. Like I'm telling you right now, I think Kyler Murray can still be a franchise quarterback in the NFL. I really do. I really do. Now, someone's going to counter and say, he's too small. He's never engaged. He's not going to take it serious. Well, how do we know that? Like, how do we know that? Is it just possible that the change of scenery now does Kyler Murray good? I mean, you look at some of his numbers over the course of his career. when he hasn't played, it's not like Arizona has won a lot of games. They were 1-5 without him in 2022. They were 1-8 without him in 2023. Now 1-11, and partly because you knew he was going to get benched, but he had the injury in 2025. I'm talking about a quarterback that has well over 20,000 passing yards, well over 3,000 rushing yards. Okay. Is it just possible that it's the situation, it's the franchise, it was the team and the coaching staff that drafted this kid, and maybe he's not the problem? I mean, look, we can nitpick all we want with these quarterbacks. We really can. But I don't think Kyler Murray was the major monumental problem with the Arizona Cardinals. I don't. I really don't. And I think he's going to be able to resurrect his career. I think a new setting will help him. Now, Tua, not so much in Atlanta. I have no idea what the hell that they're doing. Absolutely no idea what the hell they're doing. Luca Brazzi, again, can't read the room on a Friday. For the love of Lou Williams, lemon pepper wings, can you get your show sponsor to sponsor a bracket contest? No, do that on your own. Get the hell out of here. What are you going to pop in on a friggin' Friday? 30 minutes into the show? You're going to tell me how to run my friggin' show? You know, I had listeners that used to try to do that crap when I was on radio in Delaware, 1290 The Ticket. And I'm going to tell you a funny story about these clowns. Because my predecessor, who I love to death, made the mistake of allowing these clowns to call into a radio show not once but multiple times during a 3-hour span. So when I took over and flipped the script and brought in the ratings and the revenue and kind of cleaned house, I had to turn around and feed these jackasses, because a lot of them were jackasses. I had to feed them steak because they were so used to having hamburger. And I got to be honest, it was exhausting at times. So guess what? The inmates, they don't run the asylum. They don't come on the air on a Friday, on a what the frick Friday, can't even read the room and tell me about lemon pepper and Lou Williams to do a bracket. Okay? Take it somewhere else with that nonsense. I got good football talk going, and you're concerned about March Madness on a Sunday. Why? Because I brought up 10 minutes of college basketball, which I'm probably going to get into tomorrow as well. I mean, I don't need that kind of nonsense. Unacceptable. And Luca Brazzi, you should know better, because I got to be honest, you have not been able to read the room during the show. You just have not been able to do it. And I got people that comment on TikTok, on X, they'll DM me, and they tell me the same thing. You got your bracket right here. All right. As we welcome in our good friend, host of Lloyd Vance's Insider Football on SR 1029 from the game, Lloyd Vance. You can follow him at Lloyd Vance. Lloyd remembers when I used to have to feed them steak instead of tuna tartare and hamburger. What's going on?
How you doing, Q?
I am doing well. How's everything on your end?
Everything's good. You know, I'm excited to be back on, and it's free agent frenzy around the National Football League.
It is a free agent frenzy. I think, you know what? Do we have you? I see you. All right.
Yeah,
All right. Yeah, you're coming in and out. No, that's you might have to. I hate when you have to do this. You
All
might.
right, let me restart it.
Yeah, go ahead. Fire off, because let me deal with some of these comments too. So fire off and then come back in with me. I don't have a problem with that. Yeah, I mean, it's utterly ridiculous. Utterly ridiculous that I got to deal with that kind of nonsense. We'll punch up Lloyd in a second. I mean, I got Sarge from Delaware saying, Q, I remember that, laughing out loud. You're right. We used to call in twice. Yeah, I mean, it's horrible etiquette. Horrible etiquette. I can't allow that kind of nonsense. I can't. Utterly ridiculous. Coming on and telling me about a bracket? Come on. Unbelievable. Yeah, you know what, man, you're 100% correct. We should do a cookie bracket. Exactly. We should do a cookie bracket. Dessert cookie bracket, black and white cookie, pink, green, the leaf cookies, excellent pull by you. A little cannoli, a little Reese's peanut butter cups would be the number 1 seed. That's not bad. Yeah, I don't know if there's going to be the number 1 seed, though. I don't know about that. I mean, that's a discussion for another day. Maybe we'll have a little fun with that tomorrow. Let me see if I can. But yeah, I mean, like I said, you know, Mark and Wallingford just said it, laughing his ass off. Q, I remember when you used to do that. Yeah, you should. You should remember. You know why? Because after a while, it just got nauseating. It got nauseating. Remember this. As much as we love doing what we do, We do not cater to you. Hey, there he is, my guy Lloyd Vance, chiming back in. What's going on, my friend?
Doing great, man. I was I was laughing, thinking about the old days in Delaware, and
Yeah,
yeah, you did put that group in line, man. You took over that show, and you need some guardrails, and Q was ready to bring it, man.
yeah, yeah. I mean, listen, the show did the show did we did extremely well. Won a lot of awards down there and brought in some good revenue. And we were doing our stuff from Kegler's. Remember the bowling alley? Doing the
I do.
football Friday, packing that joint, and yeah, the funny thing about that though. On quick side note, I remember I had it took me months, months to just kind of win over that listenership. And I'll never forget. I mean, guys would email in hate mail, just I mean, talking about death threats, hate mail, just racist. I mean, you wouldn't believe some of the stuff I got from those guys. And they were just trolling the show and they were trying to sabotage the show. And I'll never forget. I turned around to my producer, Big Mike, and I said, you know what? Enough is enough. I said, enough is enough when we come back from break. I'm ending this nonsense. And I called them all out. And I literally said, because I got in trouble for this. I literally went on the air and I was like, listen, you jackass frigging clowns. You are not going to ruin this. I'm not going to allow it. And I said, and I'll do you one better. For all those that are trying to bully and email in with all the crap and the racist crap and the death threats, I will be at Kegler Sports Bar from 3 to 6 on Friday. I will hang out an hour after. Come and see me. Do you realize not one little you know what showed up? Because they knew. We had to just end it right there, Lloyd Vance. We had to basically, you punch a bully in the face and they back down. And that's what we do. Now, speaking of bullies, something you are not, how about Eric DaCosta? How about the GM of the Baltimore Ravens? So let's walk through the pulling back, the rescinding the trade between the Baltimore Ravens and the Las Vegas Raiders, and Maxx Crosby not passing his physical. I think it was basically a let's renege on the deal. We don't want to give up 2 first-round draft picks. Oh, by the way, Hendrickson's already in the building. I mean, I listened to that presser. I listened to what he said. Man, you talk about a GM that's full of it. So your first reaction when you hear that, I had the Baltimore guys chiming in too. To me, that's par from the course of what the Ravens have done over the last 15, 20 years.
Yeah, it was shocking, Q. And I think a lot of it had to do with buyer's remorse. I think in the end they were like, oh, that's a lot of draft capital, and yes, Maxx Crosby's played the most defensive snaps of anybody in National Football League since 2019, so they probably factor that in. He's had some surgeries, but he played pretty well last year with 10 sacks, and they wanted to trade up, and we saw this before in Philadelphia. It was crazy because what was it, DeMarco Murray? They signed him inexplicably after they had Ryan Matthews already on the roster.
Yeah,
Like, what
yeah,
are you doing? So it's
yeah,
it's DeCosta. He can spin it however he wants, but this is a bad look for him. And I think the Raiders actually are going to be happy to get Crosby back, and we'll see how Hendrickson does. He kind of underperformed last year.
yeah. I mean, see, this is what I'm saying.
Wow.
You know what would happen? That would be a 2 minute altercation. Look at Brazzi. You'd be sleeping with the fishes, brother. You know that. You know what that would be like? It's and it's all fun and games, right? It's like punching up the weight class. DB, my man DB chimes in. What's up, chat? What's going on, brother? So yes, I agree with you. I think it's just buyer's remorse, and I think Crosby's got to humble himself a little bit. This whole I'm a Raider, I'm all in. Get out of here, man. You got humbled. Now, does that mean at this moment that there is leverage? Where when I say leverage, the Raiders to me, now is it possible they're thinking we're not going to be able to get 2 first-round draft picks? Teams are like, if they really want to jettison, we don't even have to worry about that right now. So
Yeah,
who would have the leverage in this situation?
yeah, Q. I think in the end, Maxx Crosby kind of he's going to have to acquiesce himself back with the Raiders. I think the Raiders are controlling this scenario, and if they want to trade him, they can, and they'll have to see what they can get back for him. But all these GMs talk to each other, and with one staff saying, okay, maybe something's loose in that knee or partial tear or something, they're going to let their doctors know. So I think at the end, yeah, they can probably trade him, but it won't be for two number ones, maybe to be a one and something lesser. But I have a feeling he's just going to be with the Raiders at this point.
Yeah, listen, ultimately, I think it's a bad look all around because I think there's going to be some red flags when wanting to deal with the Ravens going forward. I thought if Crosby wanted to still build a lot more equity with the franchise, look, you just kind of stay put and build around that and help turn it around to be a winner. Now, they're going to draft a quarterback, Mendoza, number one, which leads me into this. I came on the air talking a little bit about Kyler Murray and Tua. Obviously, quarterbacks right now that I would say not in limbo, but they kind of don't know where their career is at, right? At the end of the day, it didn't work out for those quarterbacks, respectively, Murray in Arizona, Tua in Miami. But I believe right now, Minnesota is the best landing spot for Murray. And I think out of the two, Murray has a chance to save and salvage his career. And I'll take it a step further. If you were to kind of back me in a corner, I think Murray is a franchise quarterback. Now,
Yeah,
there's pros and cons, but I don't think it's two anymore. I think the fact that, Atlanta's GM came out and said that he's going to compete against Penix, I think that was more an indictment on Penix, not an endorsement of Tua, if that makes sense.
no, I think they both brought in their guys for different reasons. And I think in Minnesota, they did see the writing on the wall in terms of J.J. McCarthy and his inconsistency. Particularly, his completion percentage is not good, Q. And they're bringing Kyler Murray there. I think in terms of he's playing indoors, he's got Justin Jefferson, a lot of weapons. I think it's a good fit for him. And as you said with the Falcons, I think they're just trying to take a flyer on Tua because the majority of his contracts will be played by the Dolphins. And they drafted Penix number one in the first round. You drafted in the first round for a reason. They're going to keep him around, give him first opportunities. And I do agree with you that Tua at this point in his career, you're starting to wonder about the arm and the concussions and what really happened at the end there because the Dolphins shut him down.
Mm.
So yeah, in those terms, those two situations, I definitely think Murray is in a better spot. We'll see how Tua does.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense. Like, if you're Atlanta, where's your path? Like, where's the rhyme or reason? You turn around, you give Kirk Cousins all this money, then you draft Michael Penix Jr. He's played in 14 games. He's regressed, even though they do have some weapons, the tight end, the running back, the line, okay. It's not like you got to worry about playing outdoors a lot. And now you bring in a quarterback that has been concussed that the Miami Dolphins basically could not wait to get. Tua to me is another hit away, and that's going to be it for his career. Now, I also pulled this up. Murray is going to be a very short favorite for comeback player of the year because I have a feeling he's going to be the week one starter.
Yes, and he's going with Kevin O'Connell, a guy who knows offensive schemes, and Kyler Murray has that first overall pick talent. He's not the biggest guy, and everybody talks about how tall he is, but you move him around the pocket, you give him some protection behind Darrisaw on that line that they have there. He can make plays, especially with Justin Jefferson. I mean, you saw with Minnesota, and how lax that McCarthy was, they still had some success. So Murray may be able to turn this thing around, and I think it's a great landing spot for him. Uh, Tua, I just that contract was such an albatross, and the Falcons are just playing a little bit, and the Dolphins are paying a lot because they made a big mistake.
To a signing as a flyer, no cost, no doubt. But you just got to wonder, is it more of an indictment on the current state of the quarterback? Like, if you look at Tua early on in his career, they ran the football, right? So now you're thinking, okay, you got arguably one of the top backs in the NFL. It's not going to shock me if Tua's week one starter, right? Because he's had a handful of success. He's had a handful more of games. Murray in Minnesota, you've got some weapons, right? Now I want to stick with the NFC. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but it seems like every other day there's a new report regarding AJ Brown, the Philadelphia Eagles. The newest, the rumblings is basically that the Eagles are going to work hard to move him. Now, first and foremost, if you're looking around the NFL, forget about what he might command or what the Eagles are going to want back. Do you believe the right move by the Philadelphia Eagles is to try to trade, or I should say, is to trade AJ Brown?
Well, that's a tough one, Q, because they need his talent. I mean, you look at they don't have many playmakers, especially on the outside, other than Devontae Smith and Goddard. That's up in the air. So, I just think they're just not going to get in return what they want. Harry Roseman has a high asking price for him, and in the end, they bring him back, and he's a distraction in the locker room. That's going to be like, oh man, you should have got rid of him. So it's something that's like a wait and see. They're waiting for around the draft somebody to bring a blockbuster type deal and drop it in their lap, but I just don't see that happening at this point. And you're seeing a lot of the receivers find their permanent landing spot for this season, and he's going to be sitting out there, and a lot of the cap situations will all be squared away, and it's going to be tough to trade him. So right now, I think he'll be back with the Eagles.
Diana Rossini, take it for what it's worth, is saying the same two teams, New England and the Rams, are making strong pushes. I mean, can you imagine if the Rams grabbed AJ Brown with that quarterback, tight end, their back, and then you line him with Puka Puka Puka, right? I mean, now you're talking about a team that I think offensively can't be stopped. Do you just also believe this is Howie Roseman kind of holding firm and seeing what teams are willing to give up for AJ Brown, and then okay, the best offer comes in. Like I'll ask you right now, is he worth multiple first round picks? Do you give up 2 first round picks for
At
AJ
this
Brown?
Q, at this stage in the career, he's 29. I that may be that's a lot to ask for him. I think maybe a one and a lesser player, a one and 4 or 5, somewhere around there, but maybe more value because two number ones, I just don't see that for him at this stage in his career. It's going to be interesting though, as Javon said right there. You
Wow.
wrote that everybody there, the Patriots and the Rams are going to try to put a best foot forward, but the thing is, Howie Roseman's got to decide, okay, this is enough, and we'll take him. But I just feel like he values him a lot.
Yeah. By the way, I want to pull that comment up. I had Eagles
Yeah.
fans on social telling me AJ Brown would be number one option with the Rams over Nakua and Adams. I mean, absolutely not. But and I think they're goofy, Jovan. I know where you're going with this, right? But Adams, they missed, at times when he was not available, that presence in the red zone. Now you have AJ Brown. I mean, now it's like feast or famine because you're going to have to double. You're afraid that Nakua is going to beat him over the top. They can run the football. And I think right now, even though Seattle's the defending Super Bowl champs, I actually give a slight edge, shorter odds. I don't care what the books say, but right now, even though it's March, I think the Rams are the odds-on favorite to come out of the NFC. And I know it's only March, but as much as I love what Darnold was able to do, I'm still going to take my shot with Stafford. All the Rams' moves were contingent upon Matthew Stafford not retiring and coming back.
Right, and they went about fixing that defense, particularly the secondary, and they were right there in the mix, and it was a close game. And Darnold didn't make the mistakes, and we'll see how that defense continues to grow under Shula for the Rams. But yeah, I think in the end, if you did have AJ Brown go to the Rams, it'd be tough because let's face it, he wants passes, and Puka Nakua is their guy, and he's going to get over 118 targets a
Yeah.
season, and that's good. Then he's sitting there, and then he's going to be a distraction for them. So it may be Patriots or bust. And Vrabel, they spent a lot last year in free agency, and they have to see about the salary cap. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
And they lost Diggs too, right? They released
Right.
Diggs. So that's another quarterback that, depending upon what happens in April with his court hearing, Murray can end up top 10 QB. New win in his sales, especially with those receivers. He's going to put up some numbers. I'll take a first, third, and a fourth for Brown. I listen. You know, I just don't get it. Are we just? Is it so many misses when we talk about evaluating the quarterback? Like Daniel Jones is an absolute thief. He should be arrested. He really should. Like, how in the world? The worst thing, okay, that the Colts could have done is put that type of tag on him. And look at the money that Daniel Jones is going to get. I mean, and you're going to tell me that when it's all said and done, Daniel Jones is going in the money hall of fame. I mean, 2 years, 88 million, up to 100 million in incentives. In what world do we live in that Daniel Jones is worth that kind of money?
Yeah, Q. It's the overvaluation of the quarterback. We see it over and over again where these quarterbacks are paid on potential, or that a coach feels like they can fix them. They give him these big contracts. I mean, Kirk Cousins is getting ready to get cut, and he's made over $330 million in his career. Q, one playoff win, and it's just like, man,
Well,
some of
but
these
think about
guys.
that for a
Yeah,
second. Daniel Jones has been in the league 7 seasons, and he's approaching 300 million. 25 for 4 years in 2019, 160 in 2023 for
yeah,
4 years with the Giants, 14 in 1 year with the Colts, and now 100 million in 2 years. So I mean, I still to this day the Giants giving him 4 for 160 because he won a road playoff game against an overrated Vikings team. Kirk Cousins has been in the NFL for 19 years, and look how much Daniel Jones has made in 7. Like, wow! I
yeah.
mean, is this guy just smiling and
They are.
charging?
They are, and these quarterbacks move the needle, and these
Yeah,
head coaches and the owners feel like they have to have him. Look at Dak Prescott; he makes $60 million a year. I mean, he's the highest paid quarterback, and what has he really done to deserve
nothing,
that title? And
nothing.
you've seen the best quarterbacks, like Tom Brady in the past. He gave a little bit money back, restructured his contract over and over again. He's probably still getting paid by the Patriots, pushing money back so they could make smart decisions around him. And that's what the best teams do. They either have a quarterback on a value contract, or on a rookie deal where they can build around him. And you saw that with the Seahawks this year, and you saw that with Patriots, both teams in the Super Bowl.
I know you talk a lot about the Eagles, obviously, on your show with the focus on the NFC East and obviously the teams around in our backyards. They're not going to be able to sign all the players that they want, and we're seeing that. And sometimes you got to let some players walk, and there's going to be over evaluation. You're going to overpay for the players, but I also think they're kind of stuck between a rock in a hard place because they just gave Davis that contract extension. Well, you've got other younger players on the defensive side of the ball that have to get signed. In years past, we would sit there and say that's not a bad problem to have, but I think it's one of the reasons that they have been uberly quiet this offseason because they're trying to lock up who they believe is going to be part of that core going forward.
Yeah, Q, and they've kind of created this problem themselves, a good problem in that they've drafted well. And they were a couple years ago when they made the Super Bowl, they were one of the youngest teams in the National Football League. And
Yeah,
he said, you know what, these young guys are going to be the core. They're going to stay together, but they're going to have to pay them market value, and that's what they have to do. And the thing is, with giving these extensions to these guys, as you're saying, they're not going to be as active on a free agent market. They may bring in some of these value guys on 1 year contracts, like we're seeing with Jones, that cornerback they signed today, and some of the other players. And then they're going to lose some guys, like Jalen Phillips. I'm sure they would love to sign him. They couldn't afford him,
no,
and
not at all.
you have A.J. Brown making a lot of money. You have Devontae Smith making a lot of money. Their offensive linemen are played pretty well. Lane Johnson, I know he's right up there with all the right tackles. We know Jalen Hurts makes over $50 million. And, they can't sign everybody. That's why Blankenship
Th-
gets wowed by the Texans
There you
and he
go.
goes down there. So
Yep.
it's a situation where Roseman knows he's going to have to keep these young guys, and maybe they wait to extend some of them on their 5th year option. So it's a precarious situation, but I know a lot of Eagles fans, like they were contacting me on my show the other night saying, "Oh, I can't believe the Eagles aren't doing anything," but their hands are kind of tied.
Yeah, it's a good point by DB right here. It tells you how thin the quarterback position is. Yes, including the draft, and then Jovan, pretty astute point, right? Because think about it, we're going to go with Riley Leonard, Anthony Richardson, and I think the Colts kind of knew they were going to stick with Daniel Jones, right? I mean, it's the quarterbacking position. I mean, we can talk about it at nauseum, but I just know going in the offseason, look, teams are going to try to address their needs. We have the draft right around the corner, but you still have some players out there, and there's going to be some movement. There's going to be other players. Teams are going to dangle the carrot here and there. And to some of the commenters' points, it's just not a very strong quarterback class, and sometimes your hands are tied, and that's why some of these quarterbacks are the retreads, and you're going to go to battle with these guys. Like to me, the Jets bringing back Geno Smith, it makes no sense to me. If you're trying to sell your fan base or give them the hopes of optimism, the fact that the Jets traded for Geno Smith and they gave up a bag of balls and Aaron Glenn, again, almost insinuating he's going to be the day one starter. I think that basically signed a death sentence to Aaron Glenn. Like I can see the first month of the season, they're 1-4. Geno Smith has that 300-yard game. They win a game and then they lose 4 out of their next 5, and it's just turnover after turnover after turnover. But Aaron Glenn's going to be adamant. See, that's the problem when you bring in bridge veteran quarterbacks. Brian Daboll and the Giants made the mistake. Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston. They should have started Winston, or they should have started Jackson Dart. They went with Russell Wilson. It didn't work out. He had one flicker moment against Dallas and had 2 horrible interceptions late and then in overtime. Aaron Glenn basically stamping Geno Smith week 1 starter, I think is a friggin' mistake, because
Yeah.
you're going to have to basically live and die with him going forward. You can't, you could bench him, but it's going to be a horrible look if you bench him 4 or 5 games into the season.
Yeah, there's just not a lot out there in terms of free agency, and then you talk about this rookie class coming in with Drew Allard, Kate Klubnik, Beck. They're just not on the level of Mendoza. Maybe Simpson sneaks in the first round, but I think a lot of it. And we brought this up on my show the other night, Q, is and I wanted to get your take on it. Our teams looking to the 2027 draft. Maybe they think, all right, if we're bad enough, Arch Manning will be in that 2027 draft. Trinidad Chambliss,
Yeah,
Dante Moore,
yeah,
Julian Sayin. These are his quarterbacks. And then there's a couple really good receivers, Jeremiah Smith out of Ohio State, Ryan Williams out of Alabama. So the next draft looks like it's loaded at number of positions. And is it possible that some of these teams are leaning towards tanking?
Well, again, you know how I feel about tanking. I know it's a philosophy, right? But I think there's something to be said about that. And I, I don't see Arch Manning. I think Arch Manning needs to steer clear of New York. Obviously, he's not going to be the giant quarterback, right? Um, unless something, Jackson Dart, God forbid, turns into a horrible quarterback, or God forbid goes down with a major injury. It's the Jets, and I don't know if you want to be part of that franchise, because here's the other thing. If it blows up in their face and they have a really bad season and they fire Aaron Glenn, that means you're bringing in another head coach with another coaching staff. It's very tough to win with a rookie quarterback, let alone, making that overhaul and bringing in a rookie quarterback like an Arch Manning that is going to have an enormous amount of pressure on him.
Yeah, and I agree with you that Aaron Glenn his seat was hot going into the season, and it's even hotter.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense to sign Geno Smith and is Woody Johnson and Malgi up there? Are they looking to say, okay, 4 wins, 3 wins the year before, and maybe they get one of these high draft picks we're talking about, but they're not going to be there to
Yeah.
to coach this guy, and
No.
that's cyclical nature of these young quarterbacks, that they're coach killers. If they don't get it done, you make the wrong decision, you're in kind of purgatory for a little bit.
Yeah. And then lastly, I think ultimately the Raiders would be smart to sign Cousins. You want a veteran that can mentor a young quarterback, right? Because there's reports coming out of Las Vegas that they're not too keen on starting this kid right away. Now they got a tight end, they got a running back. Obviously the offensive line, it was not all Geno's fault. He was sacked a lot. It was a bad move by Carroll. It cost him his job. They need to address the offensive line. I know a couple guys saying Jets should have signed Cousins. Uh, I think the Raiders is going to be the fit for him. And, he's holding that clipboard. And just in case a young quarterback struggles and we need you to come in a little bit and
And and
and
they have sure, and they have Tom Brady, who's part of the ownership
there you
group
go.
there, and he's in the ear of this team, and Mark Davis is the owner, and John Spytek, the GM. They understand that they're going to have to develop this young quarterback, Mendoza, coming over. They don't want him getting beat up too much his first year. Yeah, I could see bringing a veteran, and then when you talk about Kirk Cousins, does he want to go to a bad team? He probably wants to go to a good situation where he could be a mentor, veteran, and I think the Raiders are on the uptick in terms of
Okay.
spending. They Jalen Naylor, they got him from the Vikings. They spent all that money on Tyler Linderbaum, who's one of the top centers in football. They brought him in. Teron Johnson from the Bills on defense. Eric Stokes, another corner they brought in. So they've been very active. They even brought in Jacoby Dean, and they're getting Crosby back. So yeah, they're the needle's pointing up for them,
Great.
and I could see a veteran backup saying, you know what, yeah, let's go there. You can learn and work with Clint Kubiak, who was the number one offensive coordinator in the NFL last year, and then you have this rookie who's very personal, wants to learn, and it could be a good situation for him.
Do you have any wrestling this weekend to call?
Now wrestling's kind of winding down. We'll get ready for the NCAs. I'll mostly be watching that. I don't think I'm
Okay.
gonna do any shows on that, but yeah, it
And then
was
how about
fun doing
Monday?
that.
Monday on the show, you going Eagles heavy or a lot of all season?
You know, Javon was on with me last week. We did the free agent frenzy, and we hit it
Nice.
all. And there's even more to hit, you know. And then we'll start moving towards the draft. You know, start talking about mocks, team needs. But yeah, free agency just technically started on March 11th or so. But there's much to talk about, and you see the NFL. There's always something on the plate, man.
Yes. It gets me out of talking about a fraud 83 points in the NBA for a day or two. So, all right, brother. I always appreciate it. Did the snow melt where you're at?
It did. It was crazy. It snowed again yesterday after it was like 80 the day before. I don't know
Yeah,
what's
it's
going
just
on with this
I,
weather.
I can't deal with it. But all right, brother. You have a wonderful weekend. Excellent stuff as always. Give Lloyd a follow. Tune in every Monday, 8 to 9. Lloyd Vance's Insider Football on SR 1029 FM The Game, Coastal Sports Digital Network, part of the Odyssey family. And he's always kind enough to join us on Q on a Friday. Appreciate you, brother.
All right, Q. Talk to you later.
All right, there you have it. My guy, Lloyd Vance. Love when he jumps on. $50 million. Who you think you kidnapping? Chelsea Clinton? Stumped? What are you talking about? Rush Hour. Come on. One of my all-time favorites, please. Just come on. I love when they did the outtakes. Uh-oh, he's not going to be in Rush Hour 3. Speaking of quarterbacks, I can never get stumped. Evan Sittery is reporting the culture and trade discussions with multiple teams on Anthony Richardson, which could lead to a deal happening this weekend. The Bucks, Chiefs, Lions, Packers, Rams, Ravens are among the teams who checked in. Richardson's value is believed to be a late day 3 pick. Think about where Anthony Richardson was drafted. I just, wow. You're talking about a young quarterback. And if it was a Monday, I'd have to man up on Richardson. And I'm going to tell you why. Going into the season, I thought if he was healthy, he was going to be right around 3,300 yards and another 6 or 700 rushing. That's how high I was on Anthony Richardson because I saw a little bit of the ascension progressions late, when he played last season. Now, it was only in 11 games, but I watched a handful where I thought, okay, this kid's somewhat talented. Here we go. Run the football, keep him upright. No, you're talking about a fourth overall draft pick who's only 23, and already they're getting rid of him. Think about that for a minute. All right, 5 o'clock straight up, top of the hour, 60 to play with. As I mentioned, 60 in the books on a Friday edition of On Q. Rich Quinones here. We're powered by our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee, Three Brooks Bourbon. Get ready with T. Play it against sports. They got the golf equipment, baseball equipment, and hoops equipment right now. They'll give you best bang for the buck. 1450 Clements Ridge Road in Deptford, New Jersey. Quick timeout, top of the hour. Got some comments. John Bueller coming in from Fansided as well. Keep it locked in. We will take a quick timeout. We'll reset the table. Got some more NBA comments as well. Keep it locked in. Friday edition of On Q. All right, welcome back, everyone. A couple minutes past 5 o'clock hour. A lot of comments coming in on this Friday edition of On Cue on this 13th of March, 2026. Rich Quinones here. Don't forget, fresh roasted coffee, 20% off your first purchase. Check out the promo code BYP20 as we welcome in our good friend from Fansided, John Bueller, kind enough to join us for a couple moments. We'll get to the comments. We are just talking a little bit about some of these quarterbacks. I got to ask you about your Atlanta Falcons and what the hell are they thinking here? I mean, is this more of an indictment on Penix or the belief that Tua can salvage his career in Atlanta?
I'm not happy Tua is here, I'll tell you that much. I think they just want to get through this season. And I think more importantly, look, the Dolphins are going to be paying Tua pretty much everything in his contract. It's just the vet minimum. Look, I know they probably wanted Joe Flacco. He's going to cost more as a free agent here because he's got ties to Stefanski. But it's like, let's bridge the gap. Let's have a guy who can make some easy completions to Bijan Robinson in the backfield. And at that point, we'll figure out if Penix can play or not because this is year 3. If not, you don't have to give him the 5th-year option. And then Stefanski, Ian Cunningham, and Matt Ryan will go get their guy.
Wow, so you're saying they would have, if they would have had their pick, it would have been a guy like Flacco. You bring in a veteran like Flacco, you release a guy like Cousins, and then you bring in pretty much a guy that, for all intents and purposes, is one concussion away from ending his career. I mean, was there any thought or sentiment of going after, or making a trade with the Colts for Anthony Richardson or Kyler Murray? I don't know, man. It just seems as though, like Lloyd brought up a really good point. Is it just possible some of these teams are going the bridge route because they know they're going to be really bad and they'll kind of, go franchise quarterback hunting in 2026, 2027, with a better crop of quarterbacks coming out?
Atlanta's I don't know, they could finish in any spot in the NFC South next year. It would not shock me. They could win it. They could come in last place. That's how this kind of goes right now they've got talent on the roster here, but obviously you're coming up last at quarterback for the time being. It's going to be a better draft class in 27 than this year. So we'll see what happens at that. I mean, the Steelers made a living just kind of going year to year with a bunch of stuff in the wake of Ben Roethlisberger. So, I mean, it's happened before. I know Atlanta at least was interested in Kyler Murray. I think he was going to get more money than what they were probably willing to offer. And I guess the one thing that's helping me sleep at night is Ian Cunningham is doing what Terry Fontenot and Thomas Dimitroff would never do, which is, accumulate draft picks. Those two guys loved getting rid of draft picks, trading up for a guy. And Cunningham's letting guys walk, getting a lot of guys on cheap 1-year deals. And we'll see what happens on a prove it here. Again, he said at the combine, the last thing I want is to have 5 picks in the draft again. So
right.
He's building it the right way. He came from the Ravens. He came from the Eagles. He learned under Ryan Poles. So I'll see what happens this year. I think 27 is probably more of the year for us, to be honest with you.
I said between the two, Tua or Murray. I think Murray still has the potential to be that franchise quarterback. And I think it's a great fit for him in Minnesota. But it just speaks again, the overreach when we talk about some of these young quarterbacks, right? Anthony Richardson on the block with Indianapolis, J.J. McCarthy pretty much was drafted because Harbaugh, just pushed and pushed and pushed. And I think this is a major indictment on how we view some of these quarterbacks. And look, I mean, we know that it's a different GM and it's a whole different situation in Minnesota, right? Because it just blew up in their face with a lot of stuff. But to me, Murray comes in, I insert him as day one starter.
Absolutely. I don't think it's particularly close because, I don't feel he operates with fear under center. I think McCarthy, just unless he's being told exactly what's going on, he's not about that. And I also think with Murray, he throws the football with a little bit more touch because, again, he is a baseball player, granted more of an outfielder, so you don't necessarily have to have that middle infielder stuff that made Russell Wilson so good in his prime and everything like that. But, Murray adds a dynamic to the game that I don't think McCarthy can sniff at this point. And the fact that Quezzy's out and you've kind of got a bridge GM at this point, I don't really see why you need to be overly invested in the guy.
Is there still a place in the NFL for Anthony Richardson now with the Colts, with that deal with Daniel Jones? And obviously they wanted to get that deal done because there's no confidence in their quarterbacks right now in the quarterback room. But But Anthony Richardson, there's a couple of reports that they're willing, the Colts are looking to move him for a third-round draft pick. And this kid was a top 5, draft pick after a handful of games in college too.
I think it's a testament. He had like maybe 20 starts, if that, at Florida over 3 years. He made a lot of money after that one really good game versus Utah. But I've always thought Pittsburgh kind of makes sense for him because that, like, at the very least, you're not expected to do a whole hell of a lot. Division's in flux, and maybe you can use him as like a battering ram in the backfield to try to eke out a couple of wins there. Maybe he'll get like a second contract. And again, I think I would probably trust Mike McCarthy more so than maybe some other guys to put him in positions to succeed as a former an offensive minded coach.
How about Buffalo? The fact that Tyreek Hill was released from Kansas City, I think Buffalo needs to bring in another wide receiver in addition to the move that they already made for Moore in that trade with Chicago. Do you see a scenario where the Bills, low risk, high reward here, bringing in a veteran guy like Hill?
I don't hate that. I think that's actually a pretty good spot for him because, you've got intel from a guy who's started in the division with Miami, who's been, at the top of your conference in Kansas City. It's a cheap sort of deal. And I think Tyreek Hill, can be about football, or has shown at times. Like he's made it work in difficult spots there at some point. But I think that if you're Buffalo, you need to kind of build your receiving core, kind of like what Joe Brady had in 2019 LSU, where you had Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. Look, I don't think Moore or Hill are really that, but you've got Josh Allen still in his prime, and you got to just give Josh Allen whatever he can to make it happen. Because if it doesn't happen, it's not happening, man.
Yeah, I mean, this is the window, right? This is the window of opportunity for a team like Buffalo, even a team like Baltimore that I still think a little sketchy, a little shady. I think ultimate buyer's remorse there. And if these reports are true with Crosby in the building and then Hendrickson in the building, well, obviously they realize we don't have to give up 2 first-round draft picks, right? We can just sign a free agent, and shame on Cincinnati not trading him, Hendrickson, when they had an opportunity to get some value back. But I just think the whole thing is absolutely sketchy. I'm not going to suggest that the NFL, dock the Baltimore Ravens draft picks. I'm not going to suggest that they fine them, but there is I don't know, the optics. Is it fair? Yes. Is it foul? Yes. Like both those statements or those sentiments can be true.
Yeah, the optics are terrible, and I think the karmic implications of this are not going to pan out for Baltimore here. Because look, you really threw a wrench in whatever the Raiders were trying to do in free agency. They're trying to get this thing going. They're trying to build a team around like a new core of Fernando Mendoza and whoever else is here.
Yep.
And look, Crosby's been like a team guy. I mean, he's got a Raiders tattoo. He's been a good soldier for them. Made a lot of money, but if he's beat up and you kind of operate out of bad faith there in Baltimore, thinking you kind of operate above the fray, that's not good. And then obviously Cincinnati, you should have traded Trey Hendrickson because now he's going to be playing for one of your division rivals here. And I guess I was thinking about this because, like, look, I don't think they're going to get fined for it. There'll probably be some sort of rule that'll come down the pipeline that will prevent this in some way, shape, or form. I'm not saying like a Stepien rule in the NBA where another acts out of character, but like, I don't know, there's got to be something here because it's like you can't ruin one of your revenue partners in the NFL's like free agency plans because you acted in bad faith.
Do you think they just got cold feet? Do you think they were scared of his injury history, or they really believe, wait a second, we can bring in a player maybe not as good and still save and not give up 2 first-round draft picks?
I think there might be 2 things at play here. I'm not going to think the Ravens operated dumb because they're better than that, because Eric DeCosta is really good at his job.
Yeah, but I also think he's kind of full of shit, to be quite honest, right? I mean, you're listening to Presser gut it now. Come on.
I mean, like, I sit there like there's dumb franchises that would do stuff like this. I do think maybe the medicals could be an issue in some degree. I think maybe he didn't necessarily gel with Jesse Minter. Maybe that's something there too. I mean, you think, oh, this is a guy that I went up against for a couple of seasons in the AFC West. I want him on the team. Okay, maybe not.
I never thought of that. That's a different way of looking at it. The Jets have the number 2 pick in the draft, and they're rolling with Geno Smith. So kind of tells me how bad this quarterbacking class is in college behind Mendoza. I mean, if the Raiders don't get the number 1 draft pick, right, we're probably talking about a Kyler Murray right now. Maybe there's no Kubiak because they're going to let Pete Carroll come back and run it back. I don't know how it's all going to play out, but it just speaks to how bad the quarterbacking class is. But I'm still, if I'm the Jets, I don't know, man. I just feel as though that move, no matter what, pretty much signaled the end for Aaron Glenn. I just, and the fact that you're confident he's going to be the week 1 starter, you can't go back on that. I mean, you can, but you can't. To me, I just think it's set up to be just an implosion with the Jets.
Yeah, look at it just from like a bird's eye view here. Like Dante Moore, who would have been QB2 and would have been the guy, is like, you know what? I'd rather go back to Oregon than deal with this nonsense. And then, like, maybe the Jets are going to be in the market to draft more. Moore might win the Heisman. We might be talking about him in the same light that we are with Mendoza this year. And then, maybe he doesn't even want to go play for the Jets. I'm not really entirely sure of that. So, like, look, Peyton Manning didn't want to play for the Jets. Like, it's and then you're also like, what, QB2 in this draft class is Ty Simpson. How many Alabama guys have the Jets drafted over the years at quarterback? So many. Joe Namath, Greg McElroy, Richard Todd.
Richard Todd, Headface.
Yeah. And then you got what, Aaron Glenn sleeping in the booth in like Indianapolis. Like, this isn't good. I thought he earned the opportunity to be a head coach, but like at this time, I'm like, shouldn't you have a little more pride for that? You were a Pro Bowler for the Jets, man. Come on, get it together, dude.
I know I don't know how much of the NBA you follow. What did you think of Bam's 83 the other night? I mean, I went scorched earth. I got hammered by a lot of listeners, but then I also got backed by a lot of people. I wasn't comparing him and Kobe. It's just how he went about getting the 83 that I thought was an absolute disgrace. And the fact that they're missing foul shots and foul wizard players, extending the game, extra possessions. That's not basketball, man. That's a Saturday at the YMCA.
Look, I think Bam is a good player. I think that's well established, everything like that. I think the ethics of this, that's probably not great here. But the Wizards have just been trash for most of my entire life. And then like this is like, okay, divisional opponent, we'll beat up on him. We've got an opportunity to do something cool. But I think obviously to kind of goose stats that way. I mean, it kind of feels like Russell Westbrook getting all those triple doubles, just missing shots and getting his own rebound.
It's a bad product. It is, though.
I mean, the NBA has been a bad product for a while. I just prefer college basketball a lot more. It's hard to watch right now, even though, it's tough, dude.
Well, I'm interesting you mentioned college hoops because I think this is. I know we say it pretty much around this time, which with March Madness, but I really believe you can make a case for about 10 plus teams that can win it all. Like, obviously, I can look at UConn, St. John's, Alabama, Duke. I can look at, Kansas, Houston, Arkansas, Florida. I just believe it is a wide open. It's going to be a wide open field when we see those brackets come out on Sunday.
Yeah, I would say probably at the top was Michigan and Duke. Obviously, Duke's had some injuries here, which they didn't look particularly good versus Florida State yesterday. But look, Cameron Boozer is special. Like his brother doesn't have his height. He's trying, man. He's trying. Michigan's like so well coached out there. I think Michigan State, if Jeremy Fears Jr. gets his stuff together, like that's a team to watch. Obviously, you mentioned Houston, St. John's, UConn. Arizona, nobody's really talking a lot about Iowa State. Maybe they can get it together. Florida's been disgustingly good in the SEC. I hate watching them play Georgia, just embarrass us. But like, then you've got Akoff, I guess, with Arkansas. They could go on a run. There's like I said, there's about 10 or so teams that I think can do it. I think Michigan's probably a cut above everybody else right now. But this is March Madness, and anything can happen.
What did you make of Miami, Ohio? They got bounced. They lost to UMass. Was it 87-83? So, I'm wondering, is this a scenario now where you've had the pundits come out when they were undefeated, and some goofy talk is they should not at all, right? At all have an opportunity to be part of the field of 64/65. I mean, is that just ludicrous?
That's insane. I mean, they there are teams in like what mid majors, like the Santa Claras, the St. Mary's of the world, who are kind of always in this. There's just a bunch of crap down there in like the mid 60s. Like we're talking about teams like Indiana and Stanford and Auburn being on the bubble. If you feel so like angry about the idea of Miami, Ohio being in there, have them play Auburn at Dayton. Just do it. It'd be great for everybody.
Right. And it's funny too because you mentioned that Pearl's been so you know vocal, and obviously he wants to see his son's team, right, Auburn, which is 15 more losses, right, than Miami does, get in the tournament. And I know they played a pretty tough schedule, but yeah, it's going to be fun, fascinating with all these conference tournament games today, tomorrow, this weekend. We'll have enough time to kind of run through the bracket. What do you have going on this week? And I would imagine a lot of college hoop stuff, probably a lot of stuff on the Falcons as well.
Yeah, going to be working a lot during the first round of March Madness. We're all going to be kind of locked in there with the NCAA division, covering the Selection Sunday and everything like that. There's still some tricklings and stuff from free agency. I reacted in real time to Tua coming aboard. I totally forgot it was free agency this week. I always thought it was like the 15th usually when it happens. It caught me by complete surprise.
You got the tampering, and then boom, we open everything up. Players are getting cut, and then boom, here we go. It's worse than the NBA tampering because these deals are done before midnight, right? So
yeah.
Always crazy. But all right, brother. By the way, just to shout out, where can everyone kind of follow you as always, and the podcast that you guys are putting out?
Yeah, just follow me on X at Bueller118. I've got all my articles I write there across the NCAA division. I've got all my podcasts on there from, Blog and Dirty once a week for the Falcons, Fall Start twice a week during the off season for college football, 3 times during the season. So just follow me on X. You'll find it there. I think I've got a link to my Facebook author profile page. You can find that stuff there too. That's easy. Or just Google me. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Anyway, or just, when you chime in, we put that little banner up there and everyone can follow you that way. So, all right, brother, you have a wonderful week, and always appreciate you jumping on board. I know you got a lot of work during the day, and you're kind enough to make a couple of moments time for us. We always appreciate it. We always enjoy it. Have a good weekend. No snow, so hopefully a little sunshine down south where you are. Enjoy the college troops. We'll do it again next week, pal. Thank you.
All right. Sounds good. Talk to you later, man.
All right. You got it. My guy, John Beeler, kind enough to join us. Quick timeout. We got a lot of comments coming in. We got to bang these out. 20 past the 5 o'clock hour. We'll be back in about 60. All right, good stuff from John for a couple moments. Let's get back to some of these comments. Come on, it's 83. Got to make those free throws. Oh, come on. That's horrible. Yeah, and then what did he do? He came back with 21 last night. I mentioned Luka's 51, a clean 51, not the nonsense we saw. That's why it annoyed me with Spoelstra coming out, you're pulling the Gene Hackman and Hoosiers. I'm not apologizing for nothing. Luka drops 51 last night. That's a clean 51. That was a clean 51 from Luka. There was no nonsense in that game. I watched a little bit of that game. You look at his stat line, 17 of 31, 9 of 14 from beyond the arc. And oh, by the way, he went to the line 9 times. 37 minutes, he dropped 51. And he's been on fire. He's moving up when we start to talk about the MVP odds too, because he's had a ridiculous month of March. I think it's still going to come down to Wemby. I think it's going to come down to SGA, maybe Brown as well. So, but the NBA, look, it can't hold a candle to college basketball. It just can't. I mean, I'm pumped up because I got 5 minutes to get off the air. Why? Because St. John's is going to be in action against Seton Hall. My Johnnies, who have had a ridiculous season. Now, again, Rick Pitino, he's a great coach. And they had the big win against UConn. They had that long winning streak after the loss to Providence. And then obviously they stubbed their toe a couple weeks ago in the rematch against UConn. They couldn't score. But I think St. John's, if they get the right draw and if they're in that East bracket, I think they're going to have an opportunity to get to the Final Four. I really do. I think they're going to have an opportunity to get to the Final Four. I can make a case for about 10 teams that can make a deep run. And this whole argument about Miami, Ohio not getting in is just so stupid. It really is. And I know they stubbed their toe the other night and they lost to UMass, but come on, man. Just stop. I mean, I feel as though it was like those years that the Butlers or the Tulanes or the Eastern Illinois or the San Diego States, you win 24, 25 games and you only lose 2 or 3. And I get you get bounced maybe in the first or second round or the semis of your conference tournament, the at-large. You have to look at the whole picture and the body of work. Like, I can't dismiss 23, 24, 25 wins. And I know Miami's WAB is 1.7, which is 37th in the country. And then if you put it in context, Auburn's is 0.35, which is 44th. SMU's is 45th. Indiana's is 49th, or 0.49, which is 53rd. So you kind of, you have to look at the metrics and then you strip them away when you talk about the schedule or the lack thereof, the even scheduled strength, right? And when you strip everything away and all the layers, it tells me Miami performs better against its schedule than the average bubble team, like Auburn, like SMU, like Indiana. And there's no way you're cheating this team. They're ranked 28th in the nation in strength of schedule, strength of record. So give them their just due on Sunday. Have them have their moment. They deserve to have their dancing shoes put on and go dancing. Like this argument when they were undefeated that they're not an at-large team is utterly, it's just asinine. It really is. It's a dumb argument. And every year, everyone loves Dickie V, and Dickie V's getting up there and he's fought, a lot of stuff with the cancer, and we all love Dickie V. And every year Dickie V is going to get up there and he's going to argue, he's going to yell, he's going to scream. Some team got robbed. It happens all the time in the tournament. It happens all the time, I should say, happens all the time when we have Selection Sunday. Okay? 127 straight with at least 20 SGA. Yep, just past Wilt. Probably going to be the MVP. He's probably going to be the MVP. I think Jaylen Brown has had a remarkable season. I love what Mazzulla has done from a coaching standpoint. I really do. Falcon 6 chimes in. Q, I'm not sure why the GM came out and said Tua is going to compete. We all know he's going to get the start. But that's more of an indictment on Penix. That's more of an indictment on Penix, not more of a praise on Tua. Kevin in Central Jersey chimes in. Q, did you see the comparison? Wan'Dale Robinson, your guy that you wanted the Giants to pay, 9 touchdowns, 389 targets, averaging 9.2 yards per catch. Q, contract 4 at 78. Titans overpaid. Calvin Austin, 8 touchdowns, 143 targets, averaging 13.1 yards per catch. Contract Q, 1 year, 1.5 million. That's a free agent masterclass. Giants are doing a very good job in free agency. They are, but let's not, what just yet. Okay. Everyone just, Giant fans, relax. It's March. Just relax. Snead was released by the Titans, I saw. Tom and Summers point, Q, I'm with you. At the end of the day, I don't really care anymore about A.J. Brown. I'm ready to move past. Well, listen, it's yet to be seen what the Eagles, if they decide to do something, if they decide to move A.J. Brown, then so be it. I think the issue is that it's just been at nauseum, right? And that's the problem. We can mention it a couple minutes here and there. We get a lot of Eagles fans that chime in, a lot of Giants, a lot of Ravens, a lot of DC, a lot of Cowboys, kind of a mixed bag. But yeah, after a while, I'm just not. I don't care at this point. Like when they move them, right? G chimes in. Q, did you see the worst record over the last 10 years? Which two teams you think are tops? It's got to be the Giants and the Jets. I bet you over the last 10 years, the Giants and the Jets have probably won. I don't think the Giants have won more than 60 games over the last 10 years. And I know the Jets haven't won more than 50 something odd games. They're bad franchises right now. The Browns are bad. Carolina's been bad. The Cardinals have been bad, right? AZ chimes in. Q, I can't believe you're actually saying that Murray can still be a franchise quarterback. Yeah, I gave you the numbers. Yes, he can. He's got more of an upside right now than Tua does. He most certainly does. Listen, when he's not on the field for Arizona, they were losing some football games. I'm not going to tell you that he's an all-time great. He's a Hall of Fame quarterback, but I'll take my chances with Murray over Tua at this stage of their career, respectively. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think Arizona, they were going to release Kyler Murray. It was a done deal. They didn't want him. He didn't want to be there. Miami, they had to get rid of Tua. Just the stench, the stink, that contract, the albatross, the concussions, the inconsistent play. I mean, his poor play cost McDaniel his job. So they had to move on from Tua. They needed a clean break. I think Arizona could have set it up where we're going to give you one more season, compete with Brissett. But the fact that Jacoby Brissett played well in 6, 7, 8 games, they felt he's more than a bridge. We can squeeze 3, 4 more years out of Jacoby Brissett, and let's just move on from Kyler. He doesn't want to be here. We don't want him to be here. I think Tua, if you backed him in a corner, wanted to stay with Miami. Now, he was going to get paid, so it's not like he had to, again, sit there and start. But Murray has the upside. Tua doesn't. Tua is a concussion away. Okay? Concussion away from releasing him. Titan 6 chimes in. Q, do you think that the Titans screwed Snead? So they cut him, right? It'll save them 11 against the cap. You probably could have done this last week, though, if we're really being fair, when all these other players were getting cut. Because look at the cornerback market. Guys have been traded or guys are getting signed and they're cashing in. But this is the NFL. It's the NFL. Business decisions, feelings be damned. It's just the reality of it. Feelings be damned. It's what's best on the franchise, right? And again, to say he got screwed over, come on. A team's going to grab him, but it's not like he's an all-world, all-pro. Nice player, but I've seen him get beat more times than not. I mean, have you watched him over the last, couple seasons? No, he's a good player, but I'm not going to sit there and tell you he's a great player. I'm not going to go that route. And yeah, Kansas City, sure. Tennessee, not so much. Not so much. I don't even know what they gave up. I think they traded. Kansas City traded him. I don't even know what they got in return. A couple third-round draft picks, right? And he got a lot of money. They gave him a lot of money. They gave him $70, $80 million. Guys in the NFL we know get paid. Tackles, edge rushers, cornerbacks. He'll land on his feet. He will land on his feet, as most players do. I was seeing this story come out with the NFL. They're working on, some of these potential new broadcast deals. If you guys saw the latest. It's ridiculous. Did you see what the NFL is asking CBS? The NFL is asking CBS to pay an extra $1 billion. $1 billion to keep the NFL TV rights. So right now, Paramount is going to be in play. The NFL and Paramount are in talks a $1 billion CBS fee increase. Wow. NFL is in talks with Paramount, Skydance over a new media deal that can raise the price. CBS Broadcasting pays to broadcast Sunday afternoon games, CNBC said on Friday, citing two sources close to talks. The league is seeking about a 50% increase from the roughly $2.1 billion CBS already pays each year. That could push the annual cost to more than $3 billion. In return, the NFL would remove a clause that allow it to leave the contract early after the 2029 season. The one thing I hate about, these markets, right? It always annoyed me. Like back in the day, CBS was always the AFC. Fox was always the NFC. But now you kind of mix marinate. AFC games are on, Fox, CBS will carry NFC games. But I was never a fan of, the certain markets, right? Out of market. So if you're in the Philly market and if you're in South Jersey, 95%, 100% of the time, you'll get all Eagles games, right? And then you might get your 10 to 11 Giant games. You start going up the Parkway or the Turnpike and say you're passing through Belmar, Toms River, Jackson. Now you'll get Giant games. But if you go down 206 South towards Medford, you also might get more Giants than Eagles games. Like that always annoyed the hell out of me. And then, if the team's playing at home in the market, you're not going to get the other team. I've maintained this for years. You guys know where I'm going with this. I've said it for years. Eventually, it's going to be a la carte. It's going to be a la carte. We all know that. To a concussion might blink into it to come on. Gotta love Fox playing Run DMC as the intro to St. John's. And, old school. I know it's 5:30. We got to start wrapping it up. Eventually, TV companies will make us pay for turning our TV on every day. They will. We'll be like the Jetsons, and that's not a good thing. All right. Got to start wrapping up on a Friday edition of On Cue. We're going to be back in the saddle mañana for a little college hoops, a little Saturday edition. Check out the notifications. Good stuff from John Bueller. Good stuff from Lloyd Vance. Appreciate you guys chiming in as always. Enjoy the hoops. I got to get set for basketball later tonight, but of course I got to get locked in. St. John, Seton Hall. By the way, some finals. Let me give you some updates right now. Tennessee's up 39-38 over Vanderbilt. Earlier today, Michigan over Ohio State, 71-67, Big Ten tournament quarterfinals. Florida, DB, over Kentucky, 71-63 in the SEC quarters. And Wisconsin, a very close, they didn't cover the number, against Illinois in the Big Ten quarterfinal, 91-88. As far as the NBA, because I know how you guys love the NBA, heavy dose of the NBA in action this evening. You got about 7 okay games on the docket. Knicks are on the road. Pistons host the Grizzlies. We'll recap it tomorrow. We'll talk a little more about what's going on with the Sixers and Embiid, but we'll go college hoops heavy on a little rapid fire Saturday edition of On Cue. Check out the notifications on the YouTube channel. You guys are the best. Always appreciate you chiming in. Have a wonderful Sports Friday. As always, thank you to my sponsors. Get Ready with Tea, Fresh Roasted Coffee, Three Brooks Bourbon, Played Again Sports, Pliable in Belmar, and of course, SR 1029 FM The Game, Kicks, Rumble, Millions, and the YouTube channel. All right, you guys have a fantastic Sports Friday. Don't go out there and get too scary on the 13th. A little surprised I didn't get to see AMC running the Halloween marathons, right? I think they're going with all the Die Hard and Lethal Weapons this weekend. I thought maybe they would go the scary route, but they're not. We'll be back in the saddle mañana. As always, be safe, be sound. Thanks for tuning into a Friday edition of On Cue. I'm Rich Quinones. Hasta luego, buen día.